Hi, good evening, everyone. Happy April the 1st today. It's definitely spring here, and it's been a great day, a great few days weather-wise, getting out into the yard only as we try to manage and maneuver what's going on around us. I do have lots of yard work to do, so it's great that the weather for me is cooperating until the snow comes. Always some snow in April, but I am so glad that everyone is here today. I just wanted to start off by saying, just to take the next really 29 minutes here with me and to really just remove any distractions. I'm not sure you're going to need any paper. You might need some paper and a pen tonight to write down a few questions that I have for you, some ideas and thoughts that I had that you could take away this evening and use maybe throughout the week to help. So just kind of limiting your distractions today for the next only short while and really showing up here for yourself. As always, I'd like to start this meeting just with a really quick grounding exercise. For some reason, I myself has had a high-low anxiety day today. And just being really aware of what's going on in my body, I realize today that low level of anxiety is a little bit higher, and what I need to do to help manage that so that I'm not overcome by overwhelm, that I can manage, that I can recognize what's happening and do what I need to do to make sure that my feet are planted on the ground and my heart is centered. And so I would like to do just a quick grounding exercise so that we can really just start to learn to focus and recognize that energy that goes through our bodies. And then we can get rid of even more distractions for the next little while. So if you're willing, let's just take a couple of deep breaths. And as you're taking the first few deep breaths, I'd like you to just kind of wiggle down in your chair, get all the wiggles out, and sit up nice and tall. You can close your eyes, or you can just look softly down your nose. And as you take a couple of deep breaths, I'd like you to imagine that you're inflating a box. And as you inflate that box, you feel your ribs go out in all directions. So you feel your ribs go out to the side and go out to the front and the back. And just breathe into that nice, big, beautiful box. Fill it with some beautiful air. And when you're breathing in on the inhale, I'd like you to just pay attention to all those little tiny muscles between your ribs. And you just get to stretch them out as you take a nice big inhale. And feel all those tiny muscles on the inhale just kind of stretch and get to work their little selves out. And on the next inhale, you can feel all the little tiny muscles in your ribs. And you can feel all the little tiny muscles in your neck. And on your next inhale, I'd like you just to feel all those little tiny muscles in your face. Just get them to relax. So those little tiny muscles around your mouth, the ones around your eyes, and your forehead. And just focus on your face. And I'd like you to relax your face even more than it's relaxed right now. And on your next inhale, I'd like you to feel that relaxation just float down your body. And your shoulder blades slide down your spine. And the relaxation moves all the way through your arms and your torso, down into your hips. And you feel your legs relax and your ankles relax and your feet relax. Just feel that connection with the soles of your feet into the ground. And on your next inhale, you imagine this warm energy that comes up through the ground, up into your body, and it circles you like a blanket. And you get to carry this warm, beautiful energy throughout our session today and throughout the rest of the night. And just take one last inhale. And welcome back. Tonight I wanted to talk more about overcoming overwhelm. And specifically tonight, I wanted to talk about connection and how we foster and grow connection within ourselves and within our relationships. And what I kind of wanted to show you was where did we go here? I wanted to show you this. Here we go. Oh, technology. I wanted to show you this. I wanted to create a little diagram here for you so that we could kind of look to understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about connection, and what I'm talking about how to be more connected with yourself. In prior weeks, I talked a lot about becoming aware of your body, aware of the energy that flows through your body, and to be aware of what overwhelm feels like, what that anxiety feels like. So when I mentioned at the beginning of this session tonight, I talked about how I knew that I had this low level of anxiety that was a little bit higher. And I can actually feel when that energy is a little bit more intense. And it's not a lot, but I can be aware of what that change is. And by being aware, I am now able to say, hey, it's time to bring it back down. And I don't get overwhelmed. I don't get into those big spikes because I can feel just that small shift of energy. I become aware of it, and I take the time and I do my practices that bring down my anxiety so that I don't become overwhelmed when something doesn't go right, or we have another bit of unexpected news, or things just become more uncertain, right? We're always searching for certainty. It's the way we're wired. So when all of these things happen, if I can recognize what that underlying anxiety feels like, what that underlying feeling feels like, I'm now able to bring it back down. So when those things do pop up in my life, I'm able to manage them a lot better than maybe I had in the past. So this is what I'm talking about. And I hope this works out today, because I just love this, this writing. So when I talk about connection, like I said, what I'm really talking about are the relationships that we have. And we have many relationships that go on in our lives. So we have relationships that we see with ourselves. So we have this relationship with how we view ourselves. So A lot of people call that our inner critic, or that inner voice that we have. That's our relationship to ourselves. And we also have a relationship to others, and how we treat others, how we feel others treat us, and our interactions with other people. We have relationships with our bodies and how we feel about our bodies. We have relationships with time and how we feel about time, how we spend our time, how valuable time is to us. We also have a relationship with money. And we have this relationship too, and I call it's like our relationship of purpose. So the bigger picture, the why we are in the world, why we feel like we make an impact, and what we need in our lives to feel like we are connected with the greater good. This is the big picture, and how we fit into that. And so when I talk about connection, that is really what I'm talking about, is our relationship that we have with ourselves, with others, with our big picture purpose, how we view our bodies, money, and time. That's just how I kind of break it down, and how I see it. And what I wanted to talk about too is that all of these things that we have going on, right? So it was money and time and others, ourselves, our bodies, our purpose. Those things that I talked about, that we mentioned, it's when these things, when we feel like we're low on any one of those, when we are having some issues with our relationship about money, maybe there's not enough of it right now. What about time? Time lately seems to be very disproportionate to how it was for me a couple of months ago, and how important my time is. How I spend my time has also changed quite a bit. Our relationship with others, if we're not feeling like we have that connection, that we are making way in those relationships, our bodies, our purpose, all of that is going to feel like we're overwhelmed when we're short on any one of these, any one of these things. We're going to feel overwhelmed when we're not filling those buckets, when we feel that there's a disconnect. And what I wanted to talk tonight specifically about is this relationship that we have with ourselves. And we can talk about later, we can talk about relationships with money. That can be a great contributor to overwhelm. But tonight I purely wanted to focus on what that looks like, and how we can start to build from within this resilience that will serve us as we look at other relationships and as we manage our overwhelm. So when I talk about ourselves, there are things like self-doubt that comes up, right, inside. Imposter syndrome is also something that comes up in our relationship with ourselves. Our self-confidence. I see self-doubt and self-confidence as different. How we trust ourselves and our self-trust. Even our self-image and how we perceive ourselves in the world. So I'm not talking about necessarily how we see our bodies, because that is one relationship. But with self-image, it's like how we see ourselves, our inside self in the world. It's also connected with our relationship with others and our purpose. It's all interconnected, I suppose. Well, not I suppose, but so it's all these things. It's all of these things that I want to briefly talk about tonight, is that when we start to look at some of these things and what's going on inside of us, we can start to build our resilience up in, stop sharing. We can start to build our resilience up in ways that we never actually would have imagined. Working on ourselves, working on values, understanding what's in alignment with what's going on in the world today. What was even going on in the world 3 months ago? What's going to go on in the world in 3 months? Knowing our values, understanding what's important to us, really allows us to start to become connected. Once we know ourselves, once we know what it is that makes us tick, then we can start to look outwards and say, what is going on in our lives that is misaligned? Oftentimes, overwhelm comes up when we have a misalignment, where we're not really the way we want to be, isn't the way we currently are acting, or the way that we currently are. For me, this comes up. This came up a lot in my job, and when I was at a job that didn't feel good, didn't feel right, I became overwhelmed. I became very concentrated on time management, and I became very focused on productivity, and I got overwhelmed. Things weren't getting done on time. More and more things started to come my way. I started to get overwhelmed with my relationship with my 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 relationship with myself, with trust, and how I was trying to fix what I thought was a time issue when really it was an inside me issue. And that what I believed in and what my values were no longer how I was showing up in the world. I was at a job that didn't serve me and my values. I wasn't able to learn on that job. And one of my values that I hold highly is learning and knowledge. And that wasn't available to me. Another value that I hold quite dear is integrity, and that wasn't available at that job either. But see, I was focused on the wrong thing. I was focused on, if I could only manage time, if I could only fix my relationship with time, I would be less overwhelmed. When in reality, it was this relationship I had with myself inside and being misaligned that really was causing the overwhelm. And once I could step back and I had a look at what my values were and what I hold dear, and even what my strengths were, and for me, strengths aren't necessarily the things you do well. And this could be anything in life, right? Anything at all. Oftentimes we are put into this box of the things that we do really well. And that might not be what we really want to do or how we really want to show up. Maybe you can relate if you are always the peacekeeper in the family, and that is something that you do really well, and you keep the peace in the family. But that might not be something that is really, that can cause a lot of overwhelm when it's not the environment that you really want to be in. If communication was a value and you're the peacekeeper, that can really cause a misalignment and start causing you overwhelm when all you're doing is putting out fires, when people aren't talking to one another. And so you're not here. It's all here, and talking with my hands, putting out fires. So that's the idea behind this evening, the session this evening, is to understand the connection that we have with ourselves. So I have a couple of questions that I wanted to throw out there. So you could have a look at spending some time on answering what this is for you. And it's different for everyone. So I didn't really want to come on here and talk just about imposter syndrome, or just about self-trust, or just about how to be more self-confident, because I believe it's different for every person. But the whole idea is understanding more about who you are on the inside, so that you can, so that you're not sucked down in that arrow that I drew earlier, and it's not causing you that overwhelm. So the question that I have to ask is, in the area that connection with yourself, when you look inside, what is the challenge for you? What is that? What is the obstacle for you? What is going on inside you that is creating this overwhelm, or creating these bigger questions for you? If you went inside and you said, the thing that is keeping me from living the life that I want to live, what is that for you? So that's a takeaway. Sometimes it's not always something that comes bubbling up to the surface, but it is a question to ask. If you're a journaler, it's a great question to journal. An idea that helped me notice a little bit more about what my inner critic was saying and what was happening was that I wrote it on the top of a journal page for 5 days in a row. And I would write just one page. When I got to the bottom of the page, I would stop. But my question was, what's my biggest challenge? And I would just write, just a little brain dump. But I did it 5 times. Oftentimes, believe it or not, the first thing we think is the challenge is not the challenge. The first thing we think is the obstacle is not the obstacle. And it might seem strange now, but I'm challenging you to maybe try that with journaling, or spending time on separate occasions and asking yourself the same question in those different ways to see what comes up. It's that way of peeling those layers off the onion so that you can get to the real issue, so that when you start working on aligning your values, identifying your values, understanding what your values are, you're at the center. And it can help to kind of quiet out that noise. Oftentimes when we do value work, when we look at what are those top 5 or 6 things that we hold really dear, what's really important to us, oftentimes we are looking at what we think our values should be, or what our values were when we were raised, or geez, I really wish I had this value. And so we think that it's a value that we hold in high regard, and oftentimes it's not. But doing a little bit of work and looking at what the challenge really is, or what the obstacle really is for you, when we look at doing some value work, then it will become more clear on what things are very important to you, what values you hold high. And it can be difficult, but I think with this little bit of work and just spending a little bit of time on it, it will set up a great foundation for some of the work that we'll be doing later on. And maybe next week we'll get into some values. Maybe I'll have a handout or a worksheet that I can post in here, and we can do that. Oh yeah, Margaret says, journaling for 5 days is similar to the 5 whys. The thought behind this is that when we finally get to the final why, then we really know the core problem. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's really the same, Margaret. It's that same philosophy of getting to that core problem. But yeah, absolutely. So then I have 2 other questions for you. Maybe I lied. Maybe I said I only had 2 questions before, but now I have 2 more questions. Always keep you on your toes. When you get to that obstacle, when you get to that challenge, when you get to that thing that's holding you back, or that obstacle that's preventing you from moving forward, I would like you to think or write or journal, or even just spend some time really thinking about what are you like? What would you like to be like if that obstacle wasn't there? What's on the other side? What is it if that wasn't there? If that challenge wasn't there, if that thing wasn't there, if it was gone, if I waved a magic wand, if that was gone, what would be there on the other side? What is it that you're going for? What is it that you'd like to achieve? What is that big dream, that big thing? What does that look like? And then I would like you to say, okay, I have this obstacle in my way. What is it like right here, right before the obstacle? What's going on with me right before this obstacle? So it's like imagining that you're sprinting and you're doing I think it's not the long jump, it's the hurdles. So imagine that you're a runner and that you're training to jump over these hurdles as you race along on the track. And there's mechanics, then a mindset that goes on, and a stride that happens right before you jump over the hurdle. And then there's the landing, and then there's the end of the race. So that was the first question. What's at the end of the race? What's at the finish line? What is it that you're going for? And then the second question is, what is going on right now, right before the obstacle? What is preventing you from jumping over that hurdle? Or what's preventing you from going through that obstacle? And so those were my 3 things that I have for you this evening. I know it's really short, and I hope it was very valuable. And I think it's just a little bit of a foundation, these little snippets of ways to help start building up this resilience for overcoming overwhelm, helping understand what's going on inside of us so that we can start being who we are on the inside and showing that out into the world. And it's all layers. But this is the foundation. So, right, recognizing what's going on in your body, that somatic awareness of overwhelm, so that we can bring it down. But then also understanding, like, what is going on with that low level? What's going on with that disconnection? And even in today's climate, even, see it touching my face. Did you know it's 23 times an hour? Anyways, maybe that's a whole other episode. But really, it's about understanding what's going on with that overwhelm. Once you can recognize what it feels like, then we start to peel away the onion, and we start to understand what it is that's causing us the overwhelm in the first place. In any situation at any time. This is not anything special about what's going on. This is overcoming overwhelm stuff I teach all of the time, in any environment, in any situation, in any relationship. So Yes, thank you so much. And I wish you all the best. Stay safe and take care. Bye now.